Hi there guys, and welcome to today's episode of the Back in Shape podcast. Today we're going to be talking about vitality, how you can increase yours with this one little tip or one little strategy. It's really, really important. And in a day when we're all starting to realize that actually we're not only going to, let's just say, live to 65 and then have a couple of years in retirement and then finish. We're realizing that actually that retired third of our life is going to be really, really important. And you're seeing people in their 70s, 80s and 90s doing all sorts of crazy things that we really would expect of those in their 20s, perhaps at university, rather than those in the latter third of life. And they're really enjoying and able to do all of those things because they have vitality. And it's something that we just don't think about. And at the end of the day, the sooner you start, the sooner you're going to be benefiting from these things, and the more barrier or buffering period you have between what you're capable of doing and being in a position where you can't do those things on a daily basis. You don't have vitality. So we thought we'd start out today by getting a definition of vitality, and it's going to be written in the show notes as well, and just in case I don't get this quite right. But essentially, vitality from the Oxford Dictionary is to be strong and active with energy. And we thought we'd break those things down to understand it, because a lot of people think about vitality. Oh, I should get my nutrition right. Of course you should. I should get, other aspects of my life, my sleep right. Of course you should. But in order to achieve that specific definition of vitality, we cannot do it without having this one thing in place. And the great thing about it is it really doesn't take that much effort, that much time every single week. And we'll get more onto that towards the end of today's article. As always, if you do have any questions, please do post those in the comments below. We read and reply to all of your questions and comments to maybe explore this concept a little bit further if you hadn't thought of this before. Because at the end of the day, if you ask anyone, you probably say, yeah, I could be a bit more, I could have a bit more vitality given the opportunity, given the chance. And when we realize just how little it really takes to do that and achieve that, we really can go straight into it in great detail. So let's start off with the first one, because that definition, the words are in order, and we can see that breakout to start with. And if we start by using the example throughout this article or this podcast today of someone who does not have these attributes, and we look at someone who does not have strength, the difficulty getting out of a chair, the difficulty doing a number of things around the house, the lack of strength, particularly in our lower body, is associated with increased risk of falling. And as we age through life, we find that increased risk of falling and the consequences of those falling become increasingly severe for us. And we know older family members, I'm sure you do, who've had some sort of fall or trip, and they don't recover the same way. When we look at a little one, they're falling over all the time as they're learning to walk, and they don't even notice it at all. So understanding that getting strength in our lower body is vital to having that vitality and allowing us to achieve the second two parts. That strength is built through resistance-based training. You must be doing some element of this, moving your body on a daily basis through a full range of motion, challenging that musculature so that it maintains strength, so that the act of getting out of chairs on a daily basis, so that the act of getting out of bed, so the act of moving around is not something that we are challenged by to a significant degree. And if we have appropriate levels of strength, we can maintain those, but it does require effort and energy. It's not the kind of thing where we can, like a painting, we can paint it once and then it's there and we can enjoy it for the long term. With strength, we must go through periods on a daily basis, or at least a number of times a week, which we'll get into later, where we are actively working to foster and maintain and cherish that work that we do and the results that we have, because having strength allows us to move on to that second word. And that is be active. We know that you cannot be fully active independently or even around your own home. Not some of you, but some people will know, or you will know family members who do not have the activity levels in order to go up the stairs. Well, that happened over a long period of time, generally speaking. Failing a sort of severe accident of any sort, which doesn't apply to the majority of us, we end up in those positions where we can't get around the house. We can't maybe go upstairs. We need a stair lift perhaps, because we have not taken care of our strength for the long term. And yes, it does take a bit of time to build, but once you've built it, it really is very, very easy and effective to maintain. And you benefit from all the other sorts of benefits. Things like increased, resilience in your back, for example. Many of our members they're going through the program. Yes, they're coming in for back pain. I've got bad sciatica, I've got a bulging disc, or whatever the case may be. But the secondary benefit of going through the program is that you become more active. We've got members that came to us initially. They were in a lot of trouble. They weren't feeling very good. They've got, for example, running businesses and thinking, I need to run this thing down and maybe pass it on to the next generation because I'm not fit. I'm not able to carry on doing this workload. And then all of a sudden, or over a short period of time, relatively speaking, they're able to, have a new vigor for life, a new zest for life, and new energy levels. And they're able to do all these things and start looking, actually, at a time when I was considering winding down for retirement, I'm actually more motivated than I have been in maybe 10, 15, 20 years to actually push on the business and have record years, etc. We've got other members that, through a secondary consequence, particularly thinking for those of you that are ladies watching this, post-menopausal, in your 60s and 70s, going through this period again for a couple of years and finding that your bone density is increasing. We know this when we look at the science, when we look at resistance training, we look at the appropriate supplementation, that we can make those changes, even if we, as a lady, are postmenopausal. But those little measures, they are increases in vitality, they are increases in resilience, and they're secondary benefits to doing something that actually, for many of the members, I just came here to fix my back pain, but I didn't realize I'm able to do all of these other things. And those are just a few examples. There's other examples of people getting back into running, back into triathlons, etc., just doing the things that maybe they thought, those are in our former years. We can't really expect to do that anymore. But with the right sort of work, building strength to perhaps a level that it hasn't been in many, many years, if not decades, if not ever, allows us to do the activities at a level that we perhaps haven't done in the recent past. So activity is so important, and activity is what gives you freedom. Activity is the ability to partake in activity, that second tenet of strength, of vitality, is what allows you to participate in the world. When a family member calls you up and say, hey, do you want to meet us out for a coffee? You don't have to say, oh, well, I've got to sort out this and that, and I'm going to need help to get there. Because you've got that vitality, because you've got that strength, you're able to get up on your own 2 feet. You're able to go out the front door and feel confident, not feel uneasy on your feet. You've got that vitality building. And then the last part of this is about energy. And that is the ability to expend energy. And I'm going to kind of paraphrase it a little bit here, but fundamentally, if you do not have good strength, if you can only squat, let's say, if you can only squat for a couple of reps and then you're tired, your knees are shaking, we're wobbling all over the place, you can't participate in a long walk. You can't participate in anything in the way of strenuous activity. You can't get out and about the place and go and partake in those things. You don't have the energy for it. You might be exhausted just going up the stairs, for example. That's not having energy. But the stronger you get, the more you do in the way of resistance training exercises, the more you will be able to do, and the more you'll be able to push yourself. And then outside of the resistance training sphere, you're going to be able to participate in going for those long walks with the family, playing golf, doing some of the other sports that you haven't done in a while, taking up other things that you thought were maybe off limits. But because you have that strength, you have that ability to partake in activity, and that activity does not wear you down to the point where you're completely and utterly exhausted. It could even be just going out and spending time in the garden. You realize that actually this happens in a microcosm every single year. Perhaps you go out in spring, you think, oh man, I'm so tired. I haven't done any resistance training. I'm so tired doing this. But then the more you do, the more you can do. And you find that towards the summer months, in the back end of the sort of the season, if you will, you're able to spend longer and longer in the garden because you have that energy, because you've built a degree of strength from just doing these things over and over again. And that's allowed you to do more activity. And that's a positive reinforcing loop that gives you more energy on a daily basis. You become less fatigued by the activities of life, and it requires more strain in order to get you to that state of being fatigued. So that's it all in a nutshell. The way we're going to achieve that and improve that, particularly with our lower body, because our legs and our core and our back and pelvis, that region is what gets us around the place on a daily basis. Granted, we want to be able to move things around if we need to, and we need a little bit of upper body strength, but our lower body is what gets us around the place, from here to there, from A to B, from this thing that I want to do to that thing that I want to do. And using resistance-based training, not only is it going to increase your resilience, improve the strength of your lower back, reduce the likelihood of flare-ups for those of you that are in the membership, reduce the likelihood of any flare-ups that happen by accident, because things can happen to us, increase the time at which, or increase the speed with which we recover from those instances. But increasing our vitality through resistance training is going to also give us so many more things and allow us to do things and enjoy things on a daily basis that we maybe haven't been able to do in the past. So hopefully this has made you think about that vitality. Do you want some increased vitality? Most of us do. And getting on with some form of resistance-based training, doing it 3 to 5 times a week, 30 to 60 minutes worth of working out can really have a profound impact on your life. There are 168 hours every single week. And to say, I don't have the time for it, it's 0.03% of your week needs to be invested in something that for such a small investment of time has such a massive upside. I've seen it quoted quite a lot around on places like Instagram, etc. recently, maybe in the last 6 months or so, talking about this new research coming out about exercise. Look, at the end of the day, there's no big lobby with tons of money to put in funds into funding research to prove the benefits of exercise, but it's starting to come out more and more. And people saying things like, if exercise was a pill, the amount of systems in your body that it benefits, the amount of second order benefits that you get alongside the strengthening side of things and the improved vitality. If it was a pill, people would be selling out. They would be completely selling out. People would be trying to get it hand over fist because it has so many benefits. But the problem is people aren't, one, aware of those benefits, and two, they feel like, oh, well, I've got to do a lot of work every week to be stronger than I am. But actually, you really don't. You just need to make sure that when you're doing it 100%, and you're not kind of watching the TV at the same time, or kind of, oh, I'll just take a break here and go on and have a phone call, or I'll go and walk the dog midway through my workout. You're there, you're working out, you're working hard for that one period in the day, and you're doing that 3 to 5 times a week. That will get you results in terms of strengthening for the long term. And that will allow you to go through into that perhaps latter third of our lives, which is like 30 to 40 years for some of us, and really enjoy it and flourish. And hopefully, perhaps even you can be one of those people that we see on the internet more and more, of people that picked up some sort of activity in their 60s when they retired. Maybe it's weightlifting, maybe it's climbing, maybe it's running, maybe it's triathlons, whatever it may be. And all of a sudden you see them and they're in their 80s and their 90s and they're doing all these crazy activities and go, oh, well, I only started it when I retired. We need to not write ourselves off and give in to this notion that as we age, we're just going to be on this steady decline and it's preordained for us. There's no way around that. We have to realize that if we do actually acknowledge that there are some things that get a little bit more difficult, that start to work against us as we age, but we also have additional things as we age. As we move past our 20s into our 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s and so on, yes, we may have some biological processes working against us. For example, we're less sensitive to protein, so we have to adjust our protein intake a little bit in order to reap the benefits from a point of view of muscle synthesis. Just as one example, there are many. But as long as we offset those things, we have additional discipline, we have additional maturity in life that allows us to properly do these things and execute in ways that maybe when we were in our 20s, we perhaps couldn't do. So know that it's always checks and balances. And one of the common questions I always get from people that are a little bit older in the membership, they say, oh, I'm a little bit older, am I going to be able to do this? And they don't realize that, yes, you may be older chronologically, but you also get some benefits from that, although you have some disadvantages, maybe slower healing times, etc. The younger people also have their own benefits, but their own disadvantages as well. Maybe you're raising a young family when you're younger, so you have a little bit more limited on time, as opposed to when you're a little bit older, you don't. So don't compare yourselves to other people. Just look at your own life, your own daily basis, and see how can I fit in that 0.03% of my week to make sure I can work on improving my vitality so I can enjoy life for the long term. So that's pretty much it for me today. Do have a look if you're watching this on YouTube or one of the other platforms for the link in the description. We've got the full article breakdown so you can read through that and digest it in a little bit more detail. If you do need any help improving your vitality, you're not already a member, then you can check out a link in the description as well to learn more about the Back in Shape program. Yes, it's focused towards helping people fix and strengthen their lower back, or fix their back pain and strengthen their lower back. But the latter parts of the program are really helping people increase their vitality as well, or in addition to those goals, and also improving their resilience for the long term as well. As always, if you've got any questions, any comments, use the comment section below. It's there for a reason, and we love to read and reply to all of your comments. And until next time, have a great weekend. We'll see you in the next episode.